Greetings. This video is going to be giving an overview to the essay using the source, evaluate the view that the outcomes of general elections are stable and predictable. We're going to start off by looking at the question itself. We're going to talk about some general exam technique, and then we're going to look at the arguments that you could have or should have used in this particular essay. First of all, using the source, ... So this essay has got to be inspired by the source. It needs to start off by using the arguments in the source, but this is not an essay about what the source says. This is an essay about what you think using the source as your inspiration. So you shouldn't be making a conclusion that says, overall, I think the source says, or overall, the source is saying that. It's not asking you that. It's asking you to evaluate the view. So this is all, just like other essays, this is the case that you want to make. And the source should, in quotes, contain two viewpoints in it. So according to the specification and according to all the sample papers, the source will always have an argument on one side and then an argument on the other side. Now, it might be done by two different people in one source, or it might be an article that gives both things. So even if you were to say overall the source says, that would be wrong anyway, because the source should actually be giving both sides of the view. So there's point number one. In a source essay, you are evaluating the view that blah, 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 blah. And you're going to start off by using the arguments that are present in the source. You can bring in your own kind of arguments to counter the arguments in the source, but you have to start with the source. We've talked about this in other feedback videos which you can watch and you can discuss. The second thing to point out here is that this is about the outcomes of general elections, so not local elections, devolved elections, referendums, it's general elections. And lastly, it's about whether they are stable and whether they are predictable. So stable meaning you're kind of getting the same result over and over, predictable meaning we know who's going to win. Now, you could put stable and predictable together and just kind of say, well, it's about a kind of a consistent result, or you could perhaps, for a very high level essay, tackle those two parts differently, because stable might kind of suggest the same result over and over. So Margaret Thatcher, Tony Blair, predictable, 15 years of kind of conservative rule over the last 15 years, or unpredictable might be constantly swinging between different parties, the rise of the Liberal Democrats, the collapse of the Liberal Democrats, the rise of UKIP, the collapse of UKIP would be unstable. And then predictable, I think, is more about kind of opinion polls and things like that. So there's a lot to kind of talk about here and a lot of different ways you can kind of go with this essay. So when I give you some of the potential answers here, that's not prescriptive. That's not the only way to answer it. There are lots of ways to kind of tackle this and get good marks, but I'm just going to be showing you where we're going, where some of the ways that you could do it. To do so, I'm going to be using the mark scheme. So if I kind of go across here, you can see, hopefully behind me, and I'll blow it up as big as I can. Let me just double check that you can, in fact, more or less see that. Yes, we can. Okay, so this is the mark scheme, and it's written AO1, AO2, AO3. And so on the left-hand side, we've got the kind of the point, and then this is some of the analysis of the point, and then this is some of the evaluation of the point. So I'm just going to be focusing on this column here, and then I will attach this document to the feedback on Firefly, and you can read that through yourself. So first of all, let's say, yes, they are stable and predictable. Well, why? Because few seats change hands in a general election. Why? Because there's safe seats. Therefore, we can say that actually general elections are only won and lost in a few marginal seats. You see how that kind of pattern goes across there? So only a few seats change hands. Why? Because analysis, what's the conclusion of that? Class and region are the major determinants of voting behaviour. So you know this kind of stuff. It's about, do the rich only vote one way and the poor only vote the other. And you should know now that that's becoming more and more unstable. Now remember, make this point again, don't explain what is in the source. Debate what is in the source. So if the source says class and region are major determinants of voting behaviour, you need to come straight back at that right now with your own knowledge and say that's not true anymore. Region, okay. You could maybe, there's an argument to be made there, but Conservatives knocking down the Red Wall in 2019, you can't say that class and region are major determinants anymore. So if you were to write an essay where you just explain that point, you are missing a massive opportunity to say, well, the source is arguing that class and region are major determinants of voting behaviour, but this is no longer true because, and off you go. And that is a good source answer. Next one. Opinion polls are accurate predictors of voting behaviour. You could talk about how opinion polls are often right or in the right area, but because general elections have been so close over the last 20 years, it's been very hard for them to actually get the overall result correct. They were wrong about Corbyn, they were wrong about John Major winning in 1992. They were wrong about the Conservatives winning an overall majority in 2015. So there's lots of kind of mistakes there. But most of the time they're right. And most of the time they're on the night one is right. What they call the exit poll is normally kind of correct. Class alignment and voting behaviour is still kind of there. I mean, I think if I was writing this essay, I'd be saying they are no longer predictable in that because class alignment has broken down, partisan alignment has broken down. You've now got people voting more on issues like Brexit rather than kind of class and the economy and things like that. But, people are voting these days over different issues in different ways. Yes, the whole safe seat thing is still a major issue. That's kind of like your killer argument going the other way, perhaps. I was reading John Bercow's autobiography earlier today, and he was desperate to get a safe seat because he wanted one in 1997. And if you know about 1997, you know that's the year that Tony Blair wiped out the Conservatives. But John Bercow was a Conservative at that point, and he wanted a safe seat because he knew that even if the Conservatives got completely hammered, then a safe seat would still be a safe seat. It would still take him to Parliament. So that's kind of just a little example there of how there is stability within that. Disagreement. The pattern of just a few seats changing hands is no longer applicable. Yes, the Red Wall collapsed. Yes, there was a huge Labour landslide in 1997. Yes, the SNP massively took over Scotland. There are these big shifts going on in some places. Nick Clegg lost his seat in 2015. The Liberal Democrat leader lost her seat. There are safe seats that do sometimes drop. People's votes are now influenced by party issues and policies. Already kind of mentioned that one. That people are now voting over kind of things like Brexit rather than just the traditional health service taxation. There are other issues going in there, and I've already kind of talked about the opinion polls. Now, this bit here is own knowledge which is not in the source that might work. So here's the thing: you only get credit for evaluating the information that is in the source, but you can bring in your own arguments to discuss the information that's in the source. We talked about this in class. So if you started off a paragraph with one of these, as an examiner, I'd probably go, I can't credit that. But if you started off a paragraph with something else and then said, yeah, but on the other hand, this is more important, then I would, because then you're still discussing what's in the source. You're just countering what is in the source. So there's other things you could have brought in, like ethnicity, religion, but basically we're talking here about voting behaviour. You might even mention kind of like leadership styles, perhaps, or the change of leadership styles. Voters in the main remain loyal to the incumbent government. Yeah, so you know about incumbents in American politics. There is a factor of that in US politics as well. You could talk about referendums, and you could talk about how there is now more parties as well. So go back to the 1970s, 1980s. You've got kind of a two-party dominance, although you've got the rise of the SDP, if you remember that story. Whereas now in the kind of the 2000s, you've got the Liberal Democrats, you've got the SNP, you've got the DUP with the supply and demand, you've got rise and fall of the Brexit Party. So there are different ways you could make an argument that the stability has gone because there is a wider voting choice, and this the TIGGers or Independent Group for Change and all that kind of stuff. There's lots of additional factors that are bringing things in. So normal essay technique, what you would do is you pick a side, you build up the arguments that you agree with, you knock down the arguments that you don't agree with, you make sure you start off by referring to the source, maybe a few quotes here and there. Don't just tell me what's in the source, evaluate what's in the source, make an overall case, show a range of examples over time, usual kind of essay technique, use some keywords, show me why your arguments are stronger than the other arguments, make it a decent length, introduction, at least 3 kind of sections, conclusion, and get a great mark. So there you go. That tells you how you should be tackling this question.